Dickinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudrin. Councilwoman Coleman.
Here.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Here.
Councilman Turk.
Here.
First on the agenda this evening is a presentation, the overview of the city's NPDES Stormwater Quality Program. Greg Ruddy, Public Works Administrator.
Good afternoon. One of the requirements federal government places on the city is a National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, which is NPDES permit, and it goes further. We're required to have an MS4 permit. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. And as part of that permit, one of the items that we need to complete is a public outreach and public education component. And tonight we're just going to provide a brief overview of the program and some of the things that are involved with it. Dan Bounds from Baxter & Woodman is the consultant who's prepared the city's permit over the last several years. And so Dan's going to walk us through a brief presentation, just the program in general and some of the things that the city does for the program. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dan here.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for having me this evening. Like Greg said, the city does have a stormwater quality program that is required by federal environmental regulations and state environmental regulations to implement this program. So I'm going to give you an overview of the practices, the program elements that the city implements to keep local waters healthy, safe for the different types of recreation and uses that you have here locally. You do have a water-rich community here in Joliet, and to meet the environmental regulations that go along with those requirements. So Greg mentioned the MS4 permit, and that stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. So what we're talking about here is the piece of the city's infrastructure that carries just stormwater by itself, not sanitary sewer lines, not any sort of combined sewage and stormwater, but just the stormwater drainage portion of the municipal infrastructure. This can include the curb and gutter, any sort of drains, flow paths, and then the pipes and also concrete structures that carry stormwater from the city's paved surfaces, other types of land use to local rivers and waterways. And when stormwater hits surfaces, it does pick up pollutants. And when there's snow melt, pollutants within that snow melt gets into that water and that runoff as well, and makes it through the city's storm sewer system into local waterways. And the different types of pollutants that can be associated with stormwater runoff or snow melt are listed here on the slide. It could include sediment, which is like suspended dirt, solids within that stormwater, excessive levels of nutrients like phosphorus, nitrogen, can have fertilizers or pesticides within that stormwater runoff as it's coming off of land surfaces that are fertilized. Types of heavy metals like copper, zinc, other metals can be dissolved in that stormwater and reach your local waterways. Also detergents, oils, greases, those types of materials that might be used for taking care of vehicles or facilities or equipment can be washed off with the stormwater. And then just general trash and debris. And you've probably seen picked up by stormwater flowing into a stream, river, or lake through the storm drain system. I mentioned that you have no shortage of fine waterways within the city. You're blessed with several. And the Illinois EPA does ambient water quality monitoring from time to time on rivers and streams throughout the state and lakes as well, and test the quality of those waters for certain parameters. And several waters within the city are listed on Illinois EPA's impaired waters list. So those are waters that have excessive levels of pollutants or are not meeting water quality standards. And this is just an overview, a summary of the different water bodies within the city that flow through the city and the different types of pollutant or impairment issues that they might have. Some of the larger rivers like the Des Plaines River, the Graves River have low dissolved oxygen issues at times, excessive phosphorus levels at times, and some other problems. Some of the smaller creeks like Sugar Run, Spring Creek, Hickory Creek, Ausable, and Rock Run all have a variety of other impairments associated with them. Some of the impairments the same as the larger rivers, some unique to the watersheds or the local waterways that run through those areas. This is not a complete listing of the different types of impairments that these waters have, but just a summary. And the full list, we can provide it, Public Works can provide it, or you can get it from Illinois EPA. So the permit that Greg mentioned, that authorizes the stormwater discharge from the city. So there's a permit from Illinois EPA, has to be obtained every 5 years. It's a 5-year duration permit that authorizes the stormwater discharge from the city. It also authorizes some non-stormwater discharges of the storm drain system, like hydrant flushing that you do to maintain your systems, irrigation water, fire flows, other types of non-stormwater discharges. The permit also authorizes the control of construction site runoff from different construction projects throughout the city. And that permit requires staff to implement best management practices to prevent or reduce the pollutant discharge from your storm drain system to the maximum extent practicable. So that B&P term, best management practices, is something that flows throughout the permit requirements and has several elements that the city must implement to meet the environmental rules for reducing discharge of pollutants. Illinois EPA administers this program in Illinois. So the Stormwater Quality Program, or the MS4 program, is implemented by Illinois EPA. Permit comes from Illinois EPA to the city. It's a phase 2 permit because larger communities, larger cities were involved with phase 1 permitting. And then Illinois EPA started going into some smaller mid-sized cities, and phase 2 was where Joliet came into the program. Regulatorily, it's called the ILR 40 permit by IEPA. So this is a permit that goes by many names in the environmental regulations. Joliet's not alone in implementing this permit. Every municipality throughout Illinois, unless there's certain exemptions, has to implement the requirements of the stormwater quality permit. Over 440 agencies in the state are all working together on the same permit requirements. It's a general permit, same type of language. And like I said before, it's a 5-year permit duration with a renewal period every 5 years. So the city has developed a document called the Stormwater Management Program Plan. It is sort of the what gets implemented within the city to meet all of the rules within the permit. It describes the overall organization of the city's program for stormwater quality, the responsible parties, in other words, which departments have roles within the program to implement the best management practices, and contains all the commitments and program administration elements. This document's available on the city's website, which I'll show in a few minutes. This document shows how the city is implementing really the meat of the program, which is the 6 minimum control measures that are required by the permit. The 6 sub-bullets you see there are those 6 minimum control measures. The first 2 kind of go hand in hand with public education and outreach on stormwater impacts and public involvement and participation, how to get the community and the public involved in protecting water quality. This presentation tonight is helping meet one of the requirements of the public education requirements within the permit. The third one is the illicit discharge and detection and elimination portion of the permit. This is a portion where the city has to have ordinance authority and programs to detect any sort of illicit discharges or dumping or intentional pollutant discharges within the city system that might reach waterways. The fourth and the fifth are construction and post-construction elements within the permit requirements that describe all of the best management practices for development and construction of development and growth within the city. And the sixth is more home to the city's departments, so pollution prevention, good housekeeping for municipal operations, all of the best management practices and programs and equipment that has to be obtained, maintained, and implemented to do a good job with public works projects and maintaining the city's infrastructure. So these B&Ps have measurable goals that are developed for each program area and are described within your stormwater management plan. There's a lot of record keeping and reporting required within a regulatory program, as you can probably imagine. There's a notice of intent that gets put together at the beginning of every 5-year period, every 5-year permit term, and that describes how the city is going to implement the next 5 years of the requirements within the permit. The stormwater management plan is a big part of that, which I mentioned just a second ago. And then each year, an annual report is due to Illinois EPA that describes how you're doing with the program requirements, what has been implemented, what is yet to be implemented, and how is compliance being achieved. This is all on the city's website under the Public Works Stormwater page. As shown on the slide, you can see a series of the past annual reports there and the notice of intent. And the first link image is the stormwater management plan. Training is a large part of the 6th minimum control measure, that good housekeeping and municipal operations part. There's no shortage of training requirements within the permit to make sure city staff are doing a good job with pollution prevention. So the annual training programs must include park and open space training, fleet and building and maintenance training, pollution prevention for storage yards, snow disposal and winter operations, stormwater system maintenance, proper disposal of cleaning debris, street sweepings and catch basin cleanings, training on how flood management projects can impact water quality, green infrastructure, stormwater management controls, and different ways that they need to be maintained, and recognizing the hazards associated with illicit discharges, making sure the eyes and ears of your city staff out doing their work each day with recognizing illicit discharge or a problem potentially for stormwater quality, be able to inform their supervisor of that. So this is annual training for city staff. The permit also requires training for contractors that would be doing work on behalf of the city, to make sure they're following best management practices. So the local contact for questions about this program or reporting any water quality issues is the Public Works Department. Phone number is 815-724-4200, and the Public Works website is just one click away on the city's website. And just for closing in 1 second on local water quality issues, what we're seeing in this area of the state, there's a big emphasis on nutrient pollution issues and chlorides, which would be dissolved salts. Nutrients like fertilizers that contain phosphorus, nitrogen, when those are used in excessive levels, more than what they could be used up in their intended purpose, but run out to the waterways and become a free nutrient for our local waterways, they result in excess algae and plant growth, and that will, and through a turn of events, deplete oxygen, which is why we are seeing low dissolved oxygen levels in some of our waterways here locally. That's excess nutrient use. And then chlorides, primarily through winter roadway, de-icing and parking lot de-icing, but a little bit from water softening, give us higher levels of dissolved salts, which are chlorides, into our waterways, and those provide a toxicity to the aquatic ecosystems in this area. So the city's programs and best management practices that have been designed within the stormwater management plan are targeted pretty closely to these specific issues to make sure the city's doing a good job with pollution prevention techniques, program, and policies aimed at reducing these type of pollutant loads. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has about the stormwater quality program, the MS4 program that the city has.
Any questions?
No. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next is citizens to be heard on agenda items. Next is Matt Robbins.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
correct.
that's correct.
Okay.
Is there anyone that would like to speak on an agenda item? Next, will the city manager discuss tomorrow night's item?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to tell you that late this afternoon, we were contacted by the Manhattan Elwood Library District. And they said that they never did receive notification about the North Point annexation project. So at this point in time, I'm recommending that tomorrow night, when you approve the agenda, you take that off the agenda and we'll schedule it for another day.
Jim, is your mic on? I'm not hearing it up there.
It's on, but
Could you hear it, Krista?
How about I lean in?
You hold on 1 second, please.
How's this?
That's better. Thank you.
I'm sorry. So late this afternoon, we were contacted by the Manhattan Elwood Library District, and they said that they never did receive formal notification as required for the North Point annexation. So at this time, we are recommending that tomorrow night, when you approve the agenda, that you remove that item from the agenda.
Thank you. Yeah, I know we spoke about it earlier. I think it's, you're making the right call here. We've done everything the right way, and we should continue to do so, not cut corners, because everything's being challenged. But That's probably a good opportunity to compliment our staff, Jim, and Marty Shanahan and Chris Regis and Sabrina Spanos for the good job that they've done with this. Because I know there's legal challenges out there, but again, we've done everything the right way. So thank you for catching this, and let's get it corrected.
I'm recommending the first meeting in October for a new year, approval date.
Thank you.
Very good. So we have council meeting minutes, consent agenda tomorrow evening. And under licenses and permit applications, there's a drive-through submittal for a Starbucks restaurant. This is located at the former Ultra Foods site, and it's supposed to be a Vasa fitness area, and out in front of that site will be a new Starbucks. And so staff has reviewed this, making sure that there's sufficient drive-through and storage capacity to meet their requirements, and staging area for all of the cars. There is a stoplight at the entrance exit there going on to Larkin Road for this. Questions? Item 456 is a resolution accepting egress easement for Manhattan Road for the Richard Street lift station. IDOT turned down our driveway permit application to access Manhattan, so luckily there's a neighbor there who is providing access via their residential driveway there, and so that staff can maintain, and this will be reviewed at the Public Service Committee as well. Item 257 is requesting authorization for the Justice Assistant Grant, which we've done with Will County for a number of years. As in the past, these funds are utilized for many different types of critical law enforcement equipment. We share it 50-50, and our share will be $17,059. Joliet Police Department's decided that their most important equipment purchase would be tasers and the ancillary equipment that's associated with that. Item 458 is a 10-year lease agreement with Migraine, the brew pub that's our downtown Union Station. This is the third iteration of this agreement, and it's as a result of the property being utilized as a municipal property, which then is being leased to a company that makes a profit. And so it is assessed in a way that has put a much larger tax bill than anticipated on the owners of Migraine. And by entering this agreement and revising the practice, it will spread it out to an even amount, much more even amount in future years. I do want to note that this is not an increase in any incentive that we've agreed to in the past. Questions on that? Moving on, we've got item 459, which is an agreement with T-Mobile Wireless at 1481 Olympic Boulevard. They've got their current cell equipment at a current height of 118 feet, and they want to move it to the top, and Public Utilities does not have a problem with that request. Next item is an intergovernmental agreement with Joliet Township. We both have a number of resurfacing going on in Rowell Avenue and adjacent portions of roadway. They own some, we own some. So this agreement is, basically splitting up the contracts and and we're doing some, and they're doing some of our roads. And so we estimate that there will be a requirement to pay the township about $2,200 as part of the contracts, as they're repaving some of our roads with their contract. Questions? Moving on, we have two IDOT traffic signal improvement contracts. Originally, IDOT went out and only had one bidder on the project, and so they split it up to generate more interest and lower prices as a result. So contract A will be reconstruction of traffic signals at Jefferson and Center Street, Jefferson Hickory, Jefferson Joliet Street, Cass Street, Joliet Street, Western Avenue, and Hickory Street. Part of the project includes some LED illumination of street name signs at the 5 intersections that are reconstructed there. One of the city's requirements is, or not requirements, but we believe it's in our best interest and our residents to have LED lighting in there. And so that's a cost that we're going to pick up. Also, we're responsible for the emergency vehicle preemption system, which is so that a fire truck can change it from a green light to a red light or vice versa, so that they can go straight through the intersections to the emergency scene that they've been dispatched to. So our share of the first project, item 461, is $155,172. So council agenda item 462 is the same type of program with the same LED lighting and so forth. And that will take care of the intersections of Jefferson Street at Scott, Cass Street at Eastern, Cass Street at Scott Street at Jackson Street. And there's also the additional traffic signals, again installing the retro-reflective backplates at various locations in the city. Our share of this project is $98,278. Continuing on to item 463 and item 464 are resolutions that you have to adopt so that we can use for these various traffic signal improvement projects, that we can use our the IDOT, the MFT funds, for these projects that's required by the state. Moving on to item 468, what is being proposed is hiring a planning firm to conduct an initial study of the downtown architecture and a historical survey to determine a preliminary eligibility of these properties. The National Historic Register requires a study such as this in order to apply, and the benefit isn't so much to the city as providing another tool for the city to market various properties to developers where they can get federal tax credits for redeveloping. Now, I have Kendall Jackson double checking, but in this backup, the point was this designation would not impede or slow down the approval process. And so I'm having Kendall just make sure that there's not another level of review of every plan that comes in that could possibly slow this down. I know years ago when we looked at the prison and uses of the prison, we did not recommend that as a historical site. So, because we didn't want any kind of limit on the various potential uses of the property. So he's double checking on that, but at this time, that is the point of this phase 1 and 2 preliminary study for eligibility. The rest of the items are being reviewed by Public Services Committee, bids and contracts, so we'll wait for their recommendation. Any questions on the agenda?
Next is public comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak under public comments this evening? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Been motioned and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.